Coming up on News 2, will the decision stand after October 9th? We take a closer look at the report from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Meanwhile, what officials are doing after news that the hospital will no longer be eligible to participate in the program. Plus, at the Senate, a bill relating to corporal punishment in public schools is discussed. Hello, welcome, and thanks for joining us on this edition of News 2. I'm Sandra Gamansing. Topping on Newscast tonight, the CMS report that details the reasons Juan Louis Hospital is losing its certification is out. VI Delegate to Congress Donna Christensen is calling for a state of emergency, and she's working with the federal government to address the crisis. News 2's Erica Parsons has the story.
Contents of a 112-page report from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services about the Juan Louis Hospital are alarming. Last week, CMS put the hospital on notice that they would be losing their certification October 9th. A July visit from the federal agency found JFL to be deficient in 10 areas. One such area was the medical staff and its accountability. The report outlines numerous quality of care cases that put patients at risk, including mistaken diagnoses that caused patients to get worse or even die, errors in medical procedures, and the improper disposal of a fetus. Congresswoman Donna Christensen says it's a state of emergency that she's working to address.
In this instance, where the health and safety of the people of St. Croix are being undermined and threatened, this is time for a state of emergency. I think it would evoke a greater response from some of the agencies that I have been reaching out to. Interior, for example. They have agreed that this is going to be the Office of Insular Affairs' highest priority at this point. I'm reaching out to other agencies that have a bearing on reducing the cost. For example, U.S. Department of Agriculture and their High Energy Cost Grant Program. They can reduce the cost of the hospital.
CMS in their letter said JFL has repeatedly failed to meet conditions to be able to participate in the program that funds care for the elderly. The loss of certification means millions of dollars going out the hospital's doors. Interim CEO Dr. Kendall Griffith has vowed to appeal the decision.
We will be appealing this decision. I have my reservations about what was included in the report.
Christensen commended the hospital staff, who she says has worked hard. She says political leaders in JFL's management have worked around the clock since getting the notice, and she won't stop working to keep the hospital's doors open. Erica Parsons, News 2.
Now, News 2 will bring you more details from the CMS report in Tuesday's newscast. The VI election system will be conducting a 2014 Voter Expo this week on St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John in recognition of Voter Registration Day. There will be live music, a drive, machine demonstrations, and entertainment. Voter identification cards will be issued. Now, the expo will take place on St. Thomas from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Tuesday at Lockhart Gardens, on St. Croix from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Saturday, on St. Croix at the Sunny Isle Shopping Center, also on St. John from noon to 5 p.m. Saturday at Mongoose Junction in Cruz Bay. Officials from the Departments of Labor and Education had appeared before senators Monday to provide updates. The school calendar issue was one of the topics.
This 1,080 hours that the code requires, we do not comply with. And if we will, then I'm sure we would be able to have the best answer to your question. The students need 1,080 hours. Everything else that must be done has to be done in addition to the 1,080 hours. And that's what we have not been doing. We have been taking some of those 1,080 hours to do professional development, to do graduation, to do awards programs, to, do a number of other things that have to be done. Okay. So that's why we asked the legislature to address that.
Also, as we reported on Friday, an emergency meeting of the 30th Legislature's Committee on Health, Hospitals, Human Services, and Veterans Affairs was convened in order to determine what more can be done, as well as what specific measures are presently being taken by the Department of Health as it pertains to the chikungunya outbreak. Health officials talked about present initiatives and explained why the fogging system is not utilized.
People are going to look and say, well, in the mainland, they conduct aerial spraying, they do fogging, and what they explain, well, they have different type of mosquito-borne diseases. They have different mosquitoes you don't have in the territory. They have West Nile. You don't have West Nile in the territory. They have malaria. We don't have a confirmed case of malaria in the territory. Also, too, what's very unique is on the mainland, they don't collect cistern or rainwater for personal use. We do. And so one of the things, and we are still working with them to find out, given our uniqueness, what would be the best type of chemical to use if we do aerial spraying. And they caution us and said, you know, again, you need to focus your efforts on what works.
On September 27th, 2014, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA on St. Thomas, and its community partners will be holding their annual National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day, operating a collection site inside the Sugar Estate U.S. Post Office, where citizens can turn in their unused, unneeded, expired prescription medications. Now, this service is free and anonymous. Unused or expired prescription medications are a public safety issue, leading to accidental poisoning, overdose, and abuse. Pharmaceutical drugs taken without a prescription or a doctor's supervision can be just as dangerous as taking illicit drugs. Turn our attention overseas. The threat of ISIS is front and center as world leaders gather in New York for the United Nations General Assembly. More than 40 nations have signed on for an international coalition to defeat the terror threat. Marley Hall reports from the UN.
Secretary of State John Kerry is meeting with more world leaders in New York today as the U.S. works to build an international coalition to tackle ISIS in Iraq and Syria. On Sunday, Kerry met with Iran's foreign minister to discuss the common enemy.
The fact is, there is a role for nearly every country in the world to play, including Iran.
But it's not clear what kind of help the U.S. wants from Tehran.
Let me stress that we are not coordinating military operations or sharing intelligence with Iran.
Kerry says he also expects Turkey will step up in the fight against the Islamic State. Clashes broke out at the Turkish border Monday as Turkish Kurds tried to cross into Syria to help. President Obama will lead a meeting here at the UN this week, focusing on the terror threat. On Friday, the president signed a measure to arm and train moderate Syrian rebels to fight ISIS on the ground. In an interview on 60 Minutes, former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta said members of the National Security Team urged President Obama to arm the rebels back in 2012.
I think that would have helped. And I think in part we paid a price for not doing that.
The administration says it could take a year to train the Syrian rebels. Marley Hall, CBS News, New York.
And keeping our eye on the economy, the number of victims being compensated for fatal crashes linked to General Motors cars with faulty ignition switches has risen. 21 people are eligible. There were 140 death claims as of Friday. Demand for the new iPhone 6 and 6 Plus models is through the roof. CEO Tim Cook says Apple sold more than 10 million new iPhones, beating a previous record of 9 million almost a year ago. Here's a look at the New York Stock Exchange with our stock market watch. The Dow, NASDAQ, S&P all down. The Dow 107, NASDAQ 52, S&P 16. Well, coming up on News 2, many joined in on a historic reenactment in honor of Queen Keziah and the hundreds of coal workers who led a successful protest for better wages on September 12, 1892. Highlights from the Dollar for Dollar Culture and History Tour, Harbor Sail Tramp, and mini coaling exhibit. In some sad news, Governor John DeYoung has offered his deepest sympathies to family and friends of Andre Weber, who died at home on September 11th. DeYoung said Andre Weber was an enthusiast for all things related to the sea and marine life. His passion for the sea was contagious, and he dedicated his life to introducing the ocean world to young Virgin Islanders. Andre Weber will be missed by all those who experienced his gentle humor and devotion to the water. Andre was a master dive instructor. He was also a member of the Marine Council. He believed that marine tourism and commercial marine industries were an integral part of our community. Well, International Peace Day was recognized this weekend, and in honor, on Friday morning, one school, the VI Montessori School and Peter Gruber International Academy, paused for a moment of silence. They joined other schools around the world to sing "Light a Candle for Peace," written by Shelley Merle right after. Throughout the day, the classrooms were filled with joy and laughter as children were engaged in different activities such as making paper cutout doves, painting peace signs, creating a peace mural, and designing peace flags. Teachers explained to the students the reason for the recognition and how each one of us is an ambassador of peace. The Centennial Commission has been established for the 100th anniversary in 2017 of the transfer of the Danish West Indies to the United States. Now, March 31st, as you know, of every year, is recognized as the official transfer day in the USVI, and ceremonies have been held since 1917. The Commission has planned some public forums to get your input, the first in a set of series, Saturday, September 27th, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the Earl B. Otley Legislative Hall on St. Thomas, and then Saturday, October 4th, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the Legislative Hall on St. John. Also on Saturday, November 8th, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the Fritz Lowetz Legislative Hall in Frederiksted, St. Croix. The general public is invited. The coal workers of the former Danish West Indies represented resilience. They balanced hundreds of baskets weighing close to 100 pounds of coal on their heads from the 1850s to the 1920s to fuel the steamships that came into the St. Thomas Harbor, transporting goods, mail, and passengers between the Caribbean, South America, North America, and Europe. It was backbreaking work, for which they made $1 a day for carrying 200 baskets of coal onto the vessels that docked along the water's edge. They got through this work with their fighting songs, dance, and drums, which fueled the successful strike on September 12, 1892, and ultimately won them better pay. A commemoration and reenactment of the historic strike at the Dollar for Dollar Culture and History Tour took place as participants marched downtown Shalinamali, made their way onto the Kontiki, and then back for a march and rally in recognition. The prices at the pumps remained steady for the third week in a row. The price of fuel purchased wholesale at Hovenza remained the same as last week's for regular, premium, or diesel fuel. The wholesale price for retail gas station owners to buy regular gasoline is $3.54. The price for retailers to purchase premium gas is $3.74, and gas station owners can expect to pay $3.46 at the rack for diesel. Now, those prices all include the 14 cents per gallon tax Hovenza collects for the government. Sunday was dedicated to remembering Hurricane Hugo. As you know, we aired our special, The Longest Night in Memory. On St. Croix at the St. George Village Botanical Garden, they opened their doors to the community and showcased photo exhibits documenting the storm that devastated the VI 25 years ago. More than half a dozen speakers also shared remembrances from that time.
We've had storms that come close by, we get gale force winds, but nothing like Hugo. And we just cannot forget it. It is history.
The night was calm, then still. Then came the man they called Hugo. You said we bring pestilence upon our way. Oh my God. It was a howling wind, a ripping wind, a strong wind, a mighty wind.
As it befell, Sunday, 17th September, raging hell. The longest night we will remember, a sudden change in the atmosphere. There was panic in the air, brother, where we going?
Be sure to stick around. Your News 2 AccuWeather forecast is coming up next.